Hello, I am Baal Kadmon, and I'd like to thank you for watching and or listening to this video. This is the final video in the series about Gurdjieff, and in this one I'm going to discuss, just in brief, different ways that we can apply his understandings, his philosophies. Now, I do want to mention that in video 2, I covered some very broad ideas of his. He has many more. I just covered like the main ones, but he goes a lot deeper. And if you're interested in that, I mean, obviously you can look for his book, or you could see books by P.D. Ouspensky. Or if you would like me to create a program about it, let me know. Many people have already emailed, but I just need a few more people to email if they really want a program about it, because it does take a lot of work for me to do these things. So if there's enough demand for it, if people really want sort of my take on it and my, how I present this information, then please email me at reshef@baalkadmon.com. Now, here is just, like I said, an overview of different ways we can work with Gurdjieff's Fourth Way. Now, Gurdjieff emphasized that his teachings were not merely intellectual theory, right? But they required direct experience. And he insisted that transformation occurs through practical methods, exercises, and techniques, and conditions that sort of engage intellectual, emotional, and physical centers simultaneously. Remember, he had mentioned the way of the fakir, the way of the monk, and the way of the yogi. He wants to take those, but he wants to incorporate them in a way that not each one is not standalone, but incorporated in his fourth way. And he did this because he wanted to integrate spiritual practice into everyday life, addressing sort of the modern consciousness and its habitual disengagement from reality. So what we want to do is live in the present. You want to transform your everyday life. So Gurdjieff's method turns to daily existence and he turns it into a spiritual practice with self-awareness at the very core. His primary exercise is called divided attention, and this involves maintaining awareness of oneself while engaging externally. So this can be applied like this. In conversations, you observe your own posture, your tone, and internal reactions, but while actively listening to the other person. With daily tasks, you remain aware of your bodily sensations, your thoughts, and emotions while performing the routine activities. Most of the time with our daily tasks, we sort of just zone out. He does not want this. He is saying, if you really want to live in the present, be present, truly present, even when you do these daily tasks. And with emotional situations, he says that we have to witness our reactions without becoming completely identified with them. Because we do have emotional reactions to things, and sometimes we almost identify with them. He is saying here, just witness them, don't identify with them. So there are a few ways that a structured practice can reinforce this presence, to be in the present. You can take short breaks for self-collection, sort of to collect yourself. You should have mindfulness cues, like using daily events, like maybe the phone ringing, as a trigger for awareness. So, for example, for me, I have alarms that go off, right, for various different things that I need to do, right? I mean, I'm one of those people. I have like 20 alarms on my phone. So when the alarm goes off, what he is saying is that could be a cue for you to then trigger your awareness. Okay, so I will now become present as I complete the task that the alarm is going off for. And then you can have transformed routines, right? Performing common activities with full attention. So whatever your routine is, be completely fully aware, exercising, or whatever routine that you have. Now, another great way to do this, and a lot of people do this and they may not even realize it, is starting and ending the day with a conscious reflection. They say, people like to journal in the morning or journal at the end of the day. This is a great way to consciously reflect on your day. Now, Gurdjieff also stressed something called conscious labor, bringing full awareness to task and intentional suffering, which sounds weird, but I'll get into what that is in a moment. And that's embracing the difficulties for inner growth. So these practices transform sort of mundane activities into tools of awareness. So for example, for conscious labor, maintaining body awareness, observing your thoughts and refining your actions. Intentional suffering is accepting challenges such as discomfort and criticism, fear of, let's say you need to check your emails, but you have so many and you feel overwhelmed. He is like, jump right in without avoidance, because if you do that, you will grow. You will grow instead of just constantly avoiding them. And I sometimes get that too, especially during this time where I had mentioned before, I went through the vestibular neuritis for many months, and I suddenly found myself almost afraid to open my emails because I knew I couldn't respond right away. You know what I mean? And so I felt overwhelmed. And then finally one day I was like, no, you are going to do this and you're going to respond. I'm still perfecting that, but that's essentially what he's saying here. Intentional suffering. You are putting yourself in a suffering state, but it's not just random suffering. You're not a martyr, but what you're doing is you're sitting with the discomfort. You're sitting with the challenge that you're having. Another way is, asking for an opinion and realizing that there could be criticism there. A lot of us fear criticism. I know I do. I fear it all the time. But, less so now as I've, grown more mature in my own work. But I've been the brunt of many critics, and at first it was very uncomfortable. Now it doesn't really faze me. But, still it is uncomfortable a little bit. So not to run away from that. So we have also exercises for self-awareness. So we have the self-observation, right? Like I said, witnessing physical, mental, and emotional states without judgment. Don't say, oh, well, I'm thinking about this. That's not a good thought. No. Just think it. Let it go through. And then he has something called the stop exercise, which is sudden pauses to observe yourself in action. So you're breaking an automatic pattern. So if, let's say, you're going about a routine and it's a mindless one, like brushing your teeth, right? No one's really thinking about it unless you have some type of weird, elaborate system. Some people, all right, let me put the tooth whitener and this and that. But after a while, even that becomes, right, a routine. So basically, you could be midway in your brushing and just stop and observe yourself in the action. And you sort of break that automatic pattern. In this case, it's not a detrimental pattern. So you're not breaking a habit, but it gets you in the mood, it gets you in the routine to really think about what you're doing. The stop exercise is really good for things that might be maybe a little bit more destructive. Like, for example, if you're having a craving for something, let's say you just finished exercise and you're like, oh, I could afford a donut right now or a cookie. The minute you go for that cookie, stop, sudden pause, and observe your actions. And that'll break your automatic pattern. And you know what? Chances are you'll put that cookie away. Then you can do sensing exercises that sort of developing body awareness to anchor your presence. Some exercises such as, sort of in meditation where you can sort of go down each body part and just sort of sense them and then relax them as you go down your body. And it's, body scanning. That's a very good way to develop bodily awareness to sort of anchor your presence. And then we have, transforming emotions. That is observing and reframing negative emotions without suppressing them, but also not indulging them. Sort of like, all right, like, like for me right now, at this very moment, I know that after this recording, I'm going to work out. A part of me really does not want to work out. I feel like, I really have to get some other stuff done. But instead of suppressing it or indulging it, I just observe it. I know I'm having it, and I'm moving on. And that's the way to do it. Now, of course, some of these are easier said than done, right? But this is why it's a practice. It's not something you just do right away. And for some people, it actually might, though. And then you have also music and movement and group work that can really help anchor your presence. So like, movements like choreographed dances that integrate your attention and coordination and inner experience. Very similar to the whirling dervishes. That is sacred movement right there. And that is presence. As they do those dances, they are present in that moment. It's amazing. Music. Also, Gurdjieff thought compositions that evoke deep states of consciousness are very valuable. And I know, and of course, probably all of you know how powerful music can be and how it can anchor you in a moment. And that's why music sometimes evokes memories, because in that moment when that memory was formed, that music was your anchor and helped you anchor and create a deep state of consciousness. So music is very, very good tool for this. And then we have group work. And in some instances, group work provides sort of a mirror for self-awareness, so where you could create sort of this structured friction for growth and sort of like this shared, I guess you could say, shared field of energy to sort of sustain the presence. Now, about friction, Gurdjieff taught that resistance fosters growth. Now, when he says resistance, he doesn't mean suppressing them. He's saying that when you bump up against something, that's the point where growth can happen. So, for example, going against habits, so breaking routines to disrupt a mechanical behavior, is a resistance. Because when you have to pivot, it's a resistance. When you put that cookie away, there is resistance. You're not just gladly with a smile putting it away. You feel the challenge, like, oh, God. All right, let me just put it away. That's resistance right there. And when you get in that habit, you become less mechanical. He also said something about challenging goals, right? Setting difficult goals for sustained effort. And I do that all the time, personally. When I create these programs, it is very difficult. Now, I have one advantage, is that a lot of the material has already been written over the years in some form or another. So I'm not always starting from scratch, but still some of these notes are handwritten. So I have to scan them in, because I have hundreds of notebooks. And even so, even if a lot of it is digital now, I have to put it together. I have to record this thing. You know what I mean? I have to put all that stuff together, and that is a lot of time. And so every program I create challenges me just a little bit more. It challenges me on how to do it quickly without sacrificing quality. Okay, it's very, very important. I don't use a lot of different tools. I do outsource my images because I'm not artistic that way. But when it comes to the content, I'm present with it. And it takes me all day. This is all I do. So I know for myself, each book, each program, that's my way of creating challenging aims and setting difficult goals. So just move that to whatever your goal is. It could be exercise. It could be anything. You can also do something else that creates friction is voluntary inconvenience. And this is embracing small hardships to develop your will. So, for example, these are my examples that I don't have a problem waking up early in the morning. I naturally wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the mornings. Very rarely do I sleep in. But I trained myself to get that way, right? And I actually started trained myself in 2007. Not that I would wake up very late, but, my average wake up would be 6, 7 o'clock. But I realized when I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a lot more done. So I voluntarily inconvenienced myself. How? Instead of having the phone alarm or the alarm, back then I actually just had a normal alarm, I placed it away from me. Not where I can just sort of touch it and put it on snooze. I put it on my desk. So I had to get up to shut it off. And so that's voluntary inconvenience. So think of a small hardship that will help you develop a will and in a non-mechanical way in your life. There's also non-expression of negative emotions, observing rather than reacting impulsively to them. So if you know that you really want to say something mean to someone because you didn't like something that they did, observe that rather than reacting impulsively and saying something that will hurt them. Now, it doesn't mean you can't defend yourself. Of course you can. There's nothing about that, but it's about being unnecessarily impulsive. You could say, look, I really don't appreciate this, instead of saying, you know what, you're a fucking idiot. See the difference? If you observe it, you can say inside, God, this person's a fucking idiot. But observe that, feel that anger, rage, whatever it is. Don't react on that. And then come up with a more generative way of doing, expressing. And related to that, you could do something called also conscious delay, which creates space between your responding and the stimuli. And these are all things that he suggests in various different wording. I'm, of course, sort of modernizing it a bit and applying a little bit to my own life. But all of these things are meant to awaken you, to stop you from doing mechanical thinking. Very important. So Gurdjieff was brilliant in that way. Okay, he had a lot of interesting ideas that were, I guess you could say, far-fetched. I didn't cover them in these 3 videos because otherwise I would have 20 videos, right, on this. But I just gave you the overall understanding of his approach. And again, this was because someone emailed me, asked me for it, and I said, let me just create a video, a few videos on this. Now, so that's it, really. I think you got a really nice cross-section of his beliefs over the last 3 videos. And again, if you are interested in an in-depth program, please email me, and I'll make sure, especially if I get a X amount of responses, I'll consider it. Of course, it's going to come after the next 2 programs, but it will come to fruition if I get enough responses. And because if you do respond and email me and let me know, I'll also give you a very, very, very steep discount on it on the program once it's released. And people who know me, when I tell them I'm going to give them a steep discount, they get a steep discount. And sometimes it's very steep. So let me know if that's what you're interested in. If not, that's fine too. But if you are interested, let me know. So that's it for these 3 videos on Gurdjieff. I hope you enjoyed them. I really enjoyed producing them. It also helped break my my day, because I've been really working hard on the Watchers program and the Tibetan Book of the Dead program, which, by the way, is my mind is melting a little bit. So, because it really is challenging me, how can I make this easier to understand? Because it is not easy. For Buddhism, which should be a very simple thing, in Tibetan Buddhism is not as streamlined as you might think it is. So I'm working on that. So these videos actually helped me um, break that monotony a little bit. Not monotony, but the hardship of it, and made challenged me in another way. So I'm actually applying a lot of his work now in these programs, so I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. That's it for now. I hope you're well. I will speak to you soon. So mote it be.